They say the Faceless Ones only come once every 20 years. That's the way the locals put it softly, like they're telling you about bad weather, or an illness that's just part of life. And when they do come, you don't look at them. Not directly. Not for long. Some people believe it's just a story to keep kids from wandering too far into the woods at night. But tonight is the 20th year. I didn't believe it. Not at first. Why would I? It sounded like something ripped straight from one of those campfire ghost stories. The kind you laugh about in daylight, then try not to think about when you're alone. But I'm not laughing now. I can already feel them out there. The wind has gone still, like the forest is holding its breath. The moonlight feels wrong somehow, spilling through the trees like water over broken glass. Even the night creatures have gone silent, as if they know something's moving that shouldn't be. I came out here for the quiet, for the solitude, to get away from everything. But the quiet I have now isn't the kind anyone wants. It's the kind that settles into your bones, heavy and cold, until every heartbeat sounds too loud in your own ears. They're coming. And if you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it to morning. I haven't told anyone this before. Not really. I mean, I've hinted at it in passing, to people I thought might understand, people who seemed like they'd seen strange things too, but I've never said it out loud from start to finish. Not until now. And the truth is, I don't know how much longer I have before the memories stop belonging to me. I can already feel them fraying at the edges, like someone's picking at a thread, unraveling it a little more each night. I just need someone to listen. You don't have to believe me. You probably won't, but I can hear in your voice, yes. Even through all the static and distance, that you're the kind of person who wouldn't laugh me out of the room. You're the kind who'd tilt their head a little and say, "Tell me everything," so I will. But promise me something before I start. Promise me you won't try to find it. I know how it sounds like the oldest trick in the book, a warning designed to make you want to go. But if you've ever been out in the woods at night, you already understand that there are places people don't belong, places that weren't made for us, no matter how much we think we own the land. It was late September when I left the city for the cabin. Not just any cabin. This one belonged to my uncle, a man I'd barely spoken to in the last decade. He was the kind of guy you only saw at funerals. The kind who'd drink his coffee black and stare out the window like he was watching for something. When he called me out of the blue, said he was heading out west for a while and needed someone to keep an eye on the property, I thought it was strange. But he offered it rent-free, and after months of sleepless nights and a job that was bleeding me dry, the thought of a quiet place with no neighbors, no traffic, no city noise felt like a lifeline. It wasn't until I got there that I realized no signal really meant no signal. My phone screen might as well have been a paperweight. There was no Wi-Fi, no cell towers for miles. The cabin sat on the edge of a dense forest, a wall of pines so tall they cut the horizon in half. From the front porch, all you could see were trees, and if you strained your eyes, a narrow trail leading deeper into the dark dot. At first, it was exactly what I needed. I'd wake up late, make coffee on the old gas stove, sit outside with a book, and listen to the quiet. But it wasn't the kind of quiet I knew from city life, where it's just the absence of noise. This was a living quiet, the kind that changes with the wind, that bends around you. At night, though, the quiet was different, thicker, heavy enough that I could hear my own breathing, and sometimes, I swear, I could hear another breath too. It started small, a faint tapping on the back wall one night, like someone lightly drumming their fingers against the wood. I told myself it was just branches swaying in the wind. The next night, there was scratching beneath the floorboards, like claws dragging slowly along the beams. Mice, maybe, nothing unusual for a cabin in the woods. But the sound moved, not randomly, like an animal would, but in a straight, deliberate path, as if it knew exactly where I was standing. I didn't sleep much those first few nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear something new. A creak from the hallway, even though all the doors were shut. The faint sound of whispering, just low enough that I couldn't make out the words. And once, just once, the sound of someone laughing. Not a belly laugh, not even a chuckle. It was a thin, breathy thing. The kind of laugh you hear from someone leaning in far too close. You think you'll be brave in moments like that. You think you'll grab a flashlight, storm into the dark, and find the source. But the truth is, when you're in a place like that with no signal, no one around for miles, and a presence you can't quite see, you freeze. Because deep down, you know there's a chance you will find something, and you're not ready for what that something might be. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed one night, my phone in my hand out of habit, staring at that little no service icon in the corner. I must have been staring for 5 full minutes before I realized I'd been holding my breath the whole time. The wind had stopped. No crickets. No owls. Just silence. Then came a sound I'll never forget: footsteps, slow and deliberate, circling the cabin. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The steps went past the bedroom window, then around toward the kitchen. There was no mistaking whoever, or whatever, was out there walking upright. The next morning, I found no footprints in the dirt, not one. That's when I started thinking about what my uncle had said before I left. He'd been packing up his truck, moving slower than usual, like he didn't want to get to the part where he had to look at me. Finally, he handed me the keys and said, "If you hear them, don't look, don't even try." I'd laughed it off then, figuring it was his idea of a local joke, but that was before the sleepless nights, before the noises, before I began to feel that low, crawling pressure in my chest every time the sun went down. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. Maybe because I can't keep it in anymore. Maybe because the quiet isn't enough to hold them back now. Or maybe because I can hear them again, right now. Even as I'm speaking to you, and if they know I'm telling you, they'll want you next. The cabin in the woods had been in my family for longer than I'd been alive, but I'd never seen it until last month. My father used to talk about it the way some people talk about a curse, briefly. Reluctantly, like it was safer not to give it too much attention. The only reason I ended up there was because I needed somewhere off the grid, somewhere no one could call me, no one could find me, and no one could ask me the kinds of questions I wasn't ready to answer. The listing in the old family papers described it as self-sustaining and perfect for extended stays. What it didn't mention was that the place felt like it had been forgotten not just by people, but by time itself. The drive was long, too long. The deeper I went into the forest, the weaker my phone signal became, until it finally cut out completely. There was a stretch of dirt road that felt like it went on forever, curving through miles of pines that leaned just a little too far inward, as though they were whispering about me. By the time I saw the cabin, the sun was bleeding orange through the trees, casting those tall, skeletal shadows that make you feel like you're being followed. It was strange. The architecture didn't match the region's slanted eaves, tall, narrow windows, and a wraparound porch that sagged just slightly on the far side. The boards were weathered, but not rotting. The shingles were dark, almost black, and seemed to swallow the light instead of reflecting it. What caught my attention most was the front door. It was solid oak, but carved into it was an unfamiliar symbol, something geometric, looping back on itself in ways that made my eyes ache if I stared for too long. I told myself it was just a decorative thing, maybe an old family crest, but I didn't remember our family having a crest. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cedar and something older, like the inside of a church that's been sealed for decades. Dust motes floated in the dim light, and the floorboards creaked in long, slow groans under my weight. There was no electricity, just a wood-burning stove, oil lamps, and a single wind-up clock on the mantel. That clock was the first thing that made me feel uneasy. It ticked steadily when I came in, but by the time I finished unpacking my bag, it had stopped completely. I tried winding it again, but it wouldn't move. I shrugged it off, probably just broken. But later that night, when I went to get some water from the small kitchen, the ticking had started again. Not when I touched it, not when I wound it, just on its own. The next morning, I explored the surrounding woods. The silence was heavy, not the peaceful kind, but the kind where you start to notice the absence of things. No birdsong, no wind through the leaves. Even the crunch of my own boots felt too loud. At one point, I thought I saw something move in my peripheral vision, a pale shape between the trees, but when I turned my head, there was nothing there. I told myself the quiet was part of the charm. That was the whole point of coming out here. No signal, no neighbors, no distractions. But that night, as I was reading by lamplight, I caught sight of something strange in the reflection of the glass window. My own face, but not quite. The features were there, but the expression was wrong. I was sitting still, but in the reflection, my mouth twitched upward into a faint smile. I blinked, and it was gone. There were other little things too. The kettle on the stove would shift positions overnight. My boots, left by the door, would be angled differently in the morning, and sometimes, only sometimes, I'd hear soft creaks. On the porch, the slow rhythm of footsteps pacing back and forth. When I opened the door to check, there would be nothing there but the dark tree line, still and silent. One evening, I walked down to the small creek that cut through the back of the property. It should have been relaxing, the sound of running water and the cool air, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. Not in the obvious way, like someone standing behind you, but in that deeper, instinctive way. The kind that makes your skin tighten and your heart beat faster without reason. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see I don't know. A deer, a person, something. When I got back to the cabin, there was a folded piece of paper on the porch. No footprints in the dirt. No sign of how it got there. It was yellowed with age and brittle at the edges, like it had been sitting somewhere for decades. The handwriting was neat, but strange letters curling in odd places. The note said only one thing: they'll come when the air feels wrong. I didn't understand it then. I wish I never had. The first night, I told myself it was nothing. You'd do the same, right? You're alone in a cabin in the woods. The wind's moving through the trees like it's whispering secrets. The roof creaks like old bones settling. You tell yourself it's just nature, doing what nature does. But there was something about that first knock that didn't feel natural. It wasn't loud. It wasn't frantic. It was deliberate. 3 slow taps on the wooden frame of the cabin door. And here's the part that stayed with me. The door didn't rattle. No one was trying to come in. The knocks were gentle, almost polite, like they knew I was awake and were just letting me know they were there. I stayed in bed, listening. I didn't move. My breath slowed to the point where my chest barely rose and fell, because some small, primal part of me thought that if I pretended not to be here, whatever was outside might believe it. But the knocking came again, after maybe a full minute. Same rhythm, 3 taps. Then silence. I didn't sleep much after that. I think I finally dozed off around dawn, because when I woke, the light was pushing through the curtains in that pale, early morning way, and everything felt ordinary. That second night, I locked the door. I made a point of sliding the bolt all the way across and double-checking it before I turned off the lights. I even put a chair under the knob, something I'd seen in movies. Not because I thought it would really help, but because I needed the illusion of safety. Around 1:12 a.m., I woke up to a sound from the kitchen. A slow scrape, like wood sliding across wood. My heart dropped into my stomach. I lay still, straining to hear, until it came again. A chair. One of the dining chairs was being dragged across the floor. I sat up, listening. The cabin was dead silent except for that steady scrape. Scrape, scrape, and then it stopped. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I hadn't pushed the chair all the way in earlier. Maybe the uneven flooring made it shift. But I knew, deep down, that wasn't it. The floor here was solid. The chair had moved, and something had moved it. On the third night, I started hearing it inside my dreams, a whisper. At first, I thought it was my own mind, mumbling nonsense in that half-asleep haze we all know. But when I woke up, I realized I could still hear a faint, wet whisper coming from somewhere just behind my ear. The voice wasn't speaking in full words, not exactly, more like shapes of words, something just shy of language. I couldn't catch the meaning, but I caught the intent. It was coaxing, inviting. I turned on the lamp and sat there for hours, staring at the door. The whispers stopped the moment the light clicked on, but when I turned it off again, they came back. By the fourth night, the knocks had moved. They no longer came from the front door. They came from the walls, sometimes from the ceiling, once from directly beneath my bed. That one almost broke me. The sound was so close, so intimate, that I felt the vibrations in the mattress frame, 3 slow taps from directly below where my head was resting. I bolted upright and turned on every light in the cabin. I even looked under the bed, though my hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the flashlight. Nothing was there, just bare wooden floorboards. And yet, when I sat back down, the knocking came again, this time from the other side of the wall, as if whatever it was had simply shifted position. Unbothered by the fact I was now fully awake, on the 5th night, I thought about leaving. I even packed a bag, but when I stepped outside, the forest felt wrong. The air was too still. The smell of damp earth was overpowering, almost sweet, like something was rotting nearby. The trees, tall and skeletal in the moonlight, seemed to lean toward me ever so slightly. That was the night the reflection changed. I'd gone into the small bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and glanced up at the mirror. My reflection was there, but my eyes weren't looking back at me. They were staring slightly past me. Over my shoulder, I spun around instantly, but the bathroom was empty. When I looked back at the mirror, my reflection was normal again. Except, and this is the part I still can't explain, there was a faint outline just behind where my reflection's head had been. A shape, human-sized, but blurred like a smudge of fog against glass. From then on, every surface that could hold a reflection mirror, the black glass of the turned-off TV, even the window at night showed just enough distortion to make me doubt what I was seeing. Sometimes it was just a shadow. Other times it was clearer, the faint suggestion of a face, but without features, smooth, blank. The noises grew bolder after that. I'd hear footsteps upstairs, in the attic I'd been told was sealed shut, slow, deliberate pacing that went on for hours. Sometimes the steps would stop directly above me, as if it was just standing there, waiting. One night, I heard my own voice calling my name from outside, soft, coaxing, exactly the way I'd say it if I was trying to get someone's attention without startling them. The voice was perfect, identical. I didn't move. I didn't answer. And after about a minute, the voice said something else. "I'm cold. Let me in." The tone was wrong. Too flat, too rehearsed. Like someone had listened to me for days and was now trying to imitate emotion without actually feeling it. When I didn't respond, it knocked. 3 slow taps, just like the first night. By the 7th night, the cabin no longer felt like a structure built for people. It felt like a mouth. Every creak of the boards, every groan of the beams in the wind, sounded like breathing. The corners felt deeper somehow, like shadows could swallow more than light. I stopped sleeping entirely. I'd just sit on the bed, lamp on, watching the door, listening. And the worst part was, I began to feel watched, not only from the outside, but from inside my own head. Like whatever was here had seeped into my thoughts, curling around them, making itself comfortable. I don't know if you've ever had the feeling that the walls around you are hiding something. Not in the obvious sense, no hollow thuds or visible seams, but in a way that feels secretive. Like the structure itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to leave so it can whisper to itself again. By the fifth night in that cabin, the silence had taken on a strange quality, almost oily, clinging to the air in a way I couldn't shake. That was the night I found the journal. It started with the floorboard in the far corner of the bedroom. I'd noticed it before it was warped slightly, dipping in the center as though someone had stepped on it too many times in the exact same spot. I hadn't thought much of it. Old wood does that. But that night, as I paced the room, trying to quiet my racing thoughts after another round of unexplained knocking from the hallway, I stepped on it and heard something else. Not the dull creak of timber, a hollow sound, an emptiness beneath. The more I pressed my weight onto it, the more I could hear the faint rattle of something shifting underneath. That discovery alone should have been enough to keep me awake the rest of the night. But instead, I crouched down and dug my fingers along the edges. Dust coated my nails, and a splinter bit into my thumb before I managed to pry the board up. Beneath it, there was a gap just deep enough for something to be hidden, and inside that dark space was a bundle of fabric, stiff and dry with age. When I pulled it out, the cloth disintegrated in places, flaking away like ancient paper. Wrapped inside was a book not large, but thick, with a blackened leather cover that was cracked and flaking at the edges. No title, no markings, just the faint smell of mildew, and something else I couldn't place, something sharp, metallic, like rust. I should have waited until morning. I should have taken it outside, maybe even left it out there in the cold. But curiosity has a way of making you feel invincible in the moment. I sat on the bed, the leather warm in my hands despite the chill in the cabin, and began to read. The handwriting was cramped. Each letter looped tightly, as if the writer had been trying to fit as much onto each page as possible. The ink had bled in places, but I could still make out the words. The entries weren't dated in any recognizable way, just strange notations, like year of the third cycle or 11th moon before the crossing. At first, it read like the journal of someone documenting the wildlife and weather of the area. Mentions of deep snow, the migration of deer, the way the wind sounded different certain nights. But then, halfway through, the tone shifted. The writer began talking about them, not people in the ordinary sense. The Faceless Ones. The way the name was written capitalized every time felt deliberate, ceremonial even. The entries grew frantic, almost manic. They come every 20 years, one page read. Always when the snows are deepest, when the moon is hidden. They do not knock, they do not speak, but they wait. Another page said, they will stand at the edge of the forest, still as stone, until you notice them. That is when they begin to move. I turned page after page, my heart tightening with each line. There were instructions, too, and rituals, almost. Do not meet their gaze, though they have no eyes. Do not speak their names aloud, though they have no mouths. And for God's sake, do not let them in. The final pages were almost illegible, the handwriting jagged, slanting downward, as if written in a rush. They are patient. They can wait forever. The cabin remembers. The walls remember. I remember. I don't know how long I sat there reading, but at some point I realized the cabin had grown unnaturally quiet. Even the wind outside had died. My ears strained for any sign of life, the ticking of the old wall clock, the distant hoot of an owl, but there was nothing. And then, faintly, I heard it, a slow, deliberate scrape against the window pane. I froze. The bedroom window faced the tree line. I hadn't drawn the curtains earlier, and now I wished I had. My eyes locked on the glass, but the outside world was nothing but darkness. For a moment, I thought I saw something pale against the black, but when I blinked, it was gone. The journal felt heavier in my lap now, as if it had soaked up some invisible weight from the air. I tried to close it, but the pages resisted, sticking together like damp leaves. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before: tiny indentations on the leather cover, arranged in a circle. They weren't decorative. They looked like fingerprints. Too long, too thin, as though whatever had held this book last didn't quite have human proportions. I shoved the journal back into the gap under the floorboard, replaced the plank, and stepped back. But even after it was hidden, I couldn't shake the sense that I'd just triggered something. Like reading those words had been less about learning and more about inviting. That night, the knocking didn't come from the hallway. It came from inside the bedroom walls, slow, methodical, moving from one side of the room to the other. At one point, it stopped directly behind my headboard. I didn't sleep. I didn't even lie down. I just sat there in the dark, listening, waiting for it to end. By morning, the noises had stopped, but the damage was done. I know too much now. The Faceless Ones weren't just a local ghost story or an overactive imagination. They were real, or at least, something was real. And for the first time since I'd arrived, I understood the warning I thought I'd imagined the first night, carried to me on the wind. Don't look at them. Don't let them in. I don't remember deciding to leave. I think, at some point, my mind simply broke under the weight of it all, and my body took over. I woke up, if you can call it, waking in the gray light of early morning, my heart already pounding, my skin damp with cold sweat. The air in the cabin was heavy, thick with a smell I can only describe as rotting leaves mixed with something metallic, something warm. It coated my tongue when I breathed. I didn't even pack properly. I just shoved my phone, my wallet, and a flashlight into my jacket pocket, not even caring that my bag was still lying by the bed, half open. I thought if I left quickly enough, I might beat whatever was happening here. But when I stepped outside, the forest didn't look the same. I'd walked that path into town twice before, and it had been straightforward dirt. A few bends, sunlight filtering through the canopy. Now, the trees pressed in on either side, like dark, silent witnesses. The path seemed narrower, the air colder. I told myself it was just the fog rolling in from the hills. But the fog was moving wrong. It wasn't drifting. It was creeping. I kept walking. I didn't dare look back. Not because I thought something was behind me, though I did, but because I was certain that if I saw it, if I really looked at it, I wouldn't be able to keep going. Every few steps, I heard a sound, off in the distance. Sometimes it was a low, deliberate crunch, like a footstep in wet leaves. Sometimes it was the faint click of branches snapping in the undergrowth. And sometimes it was breathing, slow, deep, almost in sync with my own. The deeper I went, the more wrong everything felt. The light didn't change, no matter how far I walked. It stayed dim, like the moment before sunset, only without the warmth. My watch had stopped. My phone was still on, but there was no signal, not even the little emergency SOS symbol. Just a blank bar. I started marking trees with my flashlight beam, memorizing crooked branches and knots in the bark, just in case I circled back without realizing. I didn't want to believe I would, but I did. Less than 20 minutes later, I stepped into a small clearing, and my heart stopped. The cabin was there, not in the distance. Not behind me, right in front of me. It looks different now. The wood was darker, wet, almost black. The windows were clouded from the inside, like they were filled with smoke or fog. The front door was open, just a crack, swaying in the wind that wasn't blowing anywhere else. I told myself not to go back in. I told myself I could find another path, that there was no reason to step inside again. But the moment I thought of walking away, a sound came from the trees behind me. Not the slow, measured sounds from before. This was fast, close, like something was running. I didn't think so. I ran for the cabin and slammed the door shut. Inside, it was darker than it should have been. My flashlight's beam barely seemed to cut through it. I backed into the far corner, my hands shaking so badly, the light jittered across the walls. That's when I noticed the shadows. Not mine, not from the furniture. They were moving, sliding along the walls like spilled ink. They would stretch toward me and then retract, over and over, as if tasting the air. I don't know how long I stayed there. It might have been minutes. It might have been hours. At some point, the shadows began to pull away from the walls, rising up, taking form. Not people. Not exactly. Their faces, if you can call them that, were smooth, featureless, except for the faint impression of where eyes should be. They stood there, tilting their heads as though studying me. I remembered the journal I'd found under the floorboards. The last entry had said, "If they see you, you're already theirs." And now, they were right in front of me. I should have screamed. I should have fought. Instead, I felt a strange calm wash over me, like the fight had been drained out of me entirely. I understood, in a way I can't explain, that leaving was never an option. The forest, the path, the cabin were part of them. A trap that didn't just keep you in it, made you want to stop trying. One of them reached out, its hand pale and long-fingered, the skin stretched too tight over the bones. It touched my cheek, and in that instant, I heard it not out loud, but in my mind. A voice without words, an invitation, a promise. I don't remember what happened after that. Only when I opened my eyes again, I was lying in my bed in the cabin, the morning light seeping through the window. My bag was neatly packed by the door, my watch ticking normally again. The path outside looked normal too. I could have left. I think I even tried. But I didn't make it far. The trees seemed friendlier that day. The shadows are shorter. The silence is comfortable. I'm still here. I don't know how many nights it's been since I left that place, if I ever really left at all. Sleep doesn't come easily anymore. When it does, it's shallow, fractured into slivers, and I wake, gasping with my ears, straining for a sound I hope I won't hear. But I always do. Always. Somewhere. In the distance, or maybe right here in the room with me, there's the soft scrape of something moving. Slow, deliberate, a sound that feels like it's searching for me. I tell myself it's just my mind, trying to piece together what happened. But I can't shake the feeling that whatever I walked away from it, walked away with me. I haven't told anyone the whole story, until now. Not my family, not my friends, not even the kind of people who might believe it without asking questions. People like that only make you feel worse. They nod, they tell you they've heard things too, and somehow it makes the thing in your story more real. I've avoided that, until you, and I don't know why I'm talking to you now. Maybe because I think you'll understand. Maybe because some part of me is hoping that by saying it out loud, it'll lose its grip on me. But I doubt it will. The days feel different now, duller somehow, as if the world lost some of its color. The moment I stepped out of that forest, I go through the motions, eat, work, speak, but it's all automatic. Like I'm just keeping up the appearance of being human. Inside, I feel hollowed out, and the nights are worse. There's no quiet that feels safe anymore. If it's too still, I start to notice things. The shadows don't quite line up with where they should be. My reflection hesitates for a fraction of a second too long when I move. The ticking of the clock in the hallway sometimes stops only for a few seconds, but always at 3:17 a.m., and that's when I know I'm not imagining it. That's when I know they're here. Sometimes I catch myself standing by the window, looking out at the street, expecting to see them the way I did in the woods, just standing there, watching their faces, or whatever passes for faces, smooth, unreadable, impossibly still. I blink, and they're gone. But the feeling doesn't leave. It never leaves. You can't just walk away from something like that. It follows you. It waits. I've tried leaving my apartment before. I tried staying at hotels, even went to stay with an old friend for a week. It didn't matter. The same things happened, no matter where I went. The same sounds, the same shadows. Sometimes the smell of pine needles and damp earth fills the room, thick enough to taste. Sometimes I wake with soil under my nails, and I don't remember going anywhere. It's like the forest is bleeding through into my life, piece by piece, until one day I won't be able to tell where it ends and where it begins, and the dreams are the worst part. They don't feel like dreams anymore. They feel like visits. I'm back at the cabin, only it's rotting, sinking into the ground, the trees leaning closer than they ever did before. The air is heavy, and I can't breathe without tasting that dampness again, and they're there. The Faceless Ones. Closer than before. Always closer. Sometimes they're whispering in a language I can't understand, but I know they're talking about me. Other times they don't speak at all, they just watch, and the stillness is more terrifying than any sound. I've learned not to fight it. That's what they want, I think. The more you resist, the more you try to act like they're not there, the stronger they become. So I acknowledge them now. Not out loud, God. No, but in my mind. I let them know I see them, even if I pretend I don't. It's the only thing that seems to keep them from stepping any closer. For now. If you're wondering why I'm telling you this, I don't really know. Maybe it's a warning. Maybe it's a confession. I can't bring myself to say it's advice, because there's nothing you can do to stop it once it's begun. But if you ever find yourself in that place, or anywhere that feels like it, don't go inside. Don't stay. And whatever you do, don't look at them for too long. You'll think you're safe if you keep your distance, but that's how they get you. They don't need to touch you to take something from you. I think they took something from me already, something I can't get back. Maybe it was the part of me that used to believe the world was just the world. Maybe it was my ability to feel truly alone without fear. Whatever it was, I miss it, and I know I'll never have it again. There's one more thing I need to tell you. On my last night there before I ran, I heard something I've never repeated until now. It wasn't the scraping, or the whispers, or even the knocking. It was a voice. Low, patient, like it had been waiting for me to finally listen. It said, 20 years. That's all. Just those words. I didn't understand it at the time, but now, I think I do. That's how long they wait. That's how long they give you before they come back. And for me, that means they'll be here again in 19 years. If I make it that long. So I guess this is where I stop talking. I've said more than I should already, and I can feel them getting closer even now. Maybe telling you was a mistake. Maybe I've passed something on just by making you listen. If that's true, I'm sorry. And if you hear something tonight, scraping, whispering, the sound of someone standing just behind you, don't turn around. You've been listening, haven't you? Really listening. I can tell. There's this look in your eyes like you've recognized pieces of what I've said. Maybe not the whole thing, maybe not them, but something similar. So tell me, have you ever heard footsteps when you were supposed to be alone? Not just creaks in the floorboards, but slow, deliberate steps like they wanted you to know they were there. Or maybe you've seen a shadow that's too tall, a face in the corner of a window that doesn't quite have features. I'm not talking about tricks of the light. I mean the kind of thing that makes your stomach turn cold before your brain even catches up. If you have, I need you to write it down, here, in the comments. Don't keep it in your head, because that's when they notice you most. I read every single one, even the ones that make me want to shut my laptop and turn on all the lights. And if you haven't seen anything like that, be grateful. Because they say the Faceless Ones don't pick their witnesses. They just find them through stories, through whispers, through recordings. Which means maybe you're safe. Or maybe, by listening to mine, you've just let them know you're here. Either way, don't listen to the next story alone.